Kia ora, Mr Speaker. Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to participating in this debate about the sale and supply of alcohol, extended licensing hours during Rugby World Cup bill. And I want to begin by highlighting my colleague Kevin Haig's focus on alcohol in our lives, the Law Commission report. That actually had over 3,000 submissions to that report. And it's true, there is a negative correlation between alcohol consumption and some of our sporting events, and in fact a challenge by the ministerial group around the link between alcohol sponsorship and sport and its detrimental consequences on our community. But what I would also like to highlight is that 2,036,900 Kiwis actually watched the 2011 Rugby World Cup final. So the relevance of rugby to New Zealand actually is immense. The first game was played in Nelson in 1870, and the statistics last year are actually really interesting. We've got over 150,000 players, but there was a 12% increase in women playing rugby last year. We have over 600 clubs. And so for me, this legislation really is about whether it should be specific to the 2015 Rugby World Cup, or actually whether it should be generic. Because as we saw, Mr Speaker, in the Major Events Management Bill of 2007, we made it a generic piece of legislation that names specific events. So those specific events were the Rugby World Cup in 2011, the Rowing World Championships, the Under-17 Women's Football World Cup, the Cricket World Cup that we hosted earlier this year with Australia. And within that piece of legislation, there was an ability for the declaration of a major event that then qualified the legislation to a future event. And I actually think it's worth the Select Committee considering replicating that particular clause within that Major Events Management Bill, because what we do want to do, Mr Speaker, is use the time of this House wisely. And so I think there is an opportunity to potentially extend what this bill is trying to achieve, which actually is to make it easier for those people who have existing licences, whether they be on licences or club licences, to provide for the 25 of the 48 matches, which do include the semi-final, the bronze final and the final, which will be partly or completely outside the national default hours, to be able to provide New Zealanders with the opportunity to watch the Rugby World Cup. I want to commend, actually, in the time I've got left, Auckland Council, who have been incredibly proactive. And through the Auckland Council local alcohol policy development, they had over 2,600 submissions, Mr Speaker. And what they have done is created on their website, in the special licensing area, a 2015 Rugby World Cup special advice information sheet. And so a number of the councils have taken this issue incredibly seriously. And actually there are provisions currently for people who want to extend their hours to do so. But essentially, and I've tried to Google and find out how many on licences we're actually talking about. We know that there's 600 rugby clubs, and presumably they all want to open and provide the opportunity for rugby-loving people to watch within their premises. But how many on licences have we got in Aotearoa, New Zealand? I've got no idea. But I'm presuming, Mr Speaker, that there are thousands. Absolutely thousands. So the other part of this legislation that I do want to highlight is Part 2, Section 5, Subsection 5A and B, which means that if you've got an existing licence, there is a responsibility, if you want to qualify under this legislation, to advise the relevant district licensing committee and the police. So there are safeguards built into this legislation, so I look forward to further debate. Kia ora tātou.